Ian Repsold. Dude, how are you, man?
I'm good.
Ah,
I'm good.
sorry.
I'm good. Just nice and cold. That's all. That's otherwise fine.
Dude, it is freezing. I don't know, like Joburg. I heard Joburg's cold. I'm out here in the George area, next to the ocean, and it is. I don't think you can hear the heater blowing in the background here.
No, I'm not too bad. I got a nice jacket, but yeah, I'm definitely not. I'm built for speed, not for comfort or warmth. So the cold doesn't do me any good.
But dude, thanks for being on the show, man. Really, I'm excited to talk to you. I mean, you guys are changing drag racing in South Africa at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, we're all doing our little parts, but yeah, changing, I'm not sure. But yeah, we're doing our parts, and I think that's what makes every sport or industry, right? It's the combination of everybody's little efforts, I think that eventually builds this big picture, and then it makes the topic into what it is.
Yeah. But let's start from the beginning. Let's start from where did you start? Where did every look? Obviously, I did a bunch of stalking before we before we had the interview, so I can get a feel for everything. But take us through it. Where did the drag racing? Where did everything start?
Well, we've grown up as Repsolds. We I would say known in the motorsport industry. So I grew up. I was 2 weeks old, and I was sitting on the grandstand in my mother's lap. At an oval track sprint car event, right? Because my dad used to race sprint cars on oval tracks. So I've pretty much grown up around racing my whole life. My uncle's been involved. My other uncle's been involved. Over the years, my brother's been involved in racing. My cousins. So really the family is entrenched in racing. As you do when you get a car, or you get old enough to get a car, then you start playing with them, and that's really where it started for me, right? I mean, I think I was quite fortunate to get quite a cool car as a first car. It was a 1981 or 82 Corolla, the real drives.
Mm-hmm.
And it had a turbocharged motor in already, and it was a pretty cool car for a 17-year-old. And I mean, this is going back, I have to do my maths now, 23 odd years, but it was pretty quick for its time, right?
Yeah.
And that was the first car, and my first turbocharged car, and the thing was a carburetor, so we were completely clueless on how these things worked, and we broke a lot of engines, and that was sort of the norm. You go out racing on a Sunday night, and you come back, you fix the engine, and then you go back next week, and you repeat that every week. Then I.
But was that the old Jet Park days?
That was, yeah. So I used to hang out at Jet Park at Pure.
I'm from Boksburg, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, but it's interrupted. Weren't your shop was in Rietfontein Road, wasn't it?
No, that's my uncle's shop.
That's your uncle's shop?
Yeah. So that's Dave Repsold. He's known as Repsold Racing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And very synonymous with the Toyota, the twin cam type guys.
Yeah. Well, I was in his shop when I was like 8. Because my dad's shop was MB Car Center, was in Rietfontein Road. It was the engine garage was on the left, the old one. I mean, we're talking like 80s, 90s here.
Yeah.
My dad had that in Boksburg, had that it's like pinkish Anglia with a V6 in it.
Yes.
That's my dad. Yeah, my dad's still on that side, still builds cars. So that's why. Yeah, just throw a little bit in there. Please continue. I'm like changing the subject.
Small world, eh?
Yeah.
So I mean, I think I was about 21 years old, and I decided to go overseas, right? And I went overseas, and I played around with cars, that side. And it's quite difficult. I was in the UK and Holland, and it's every part that I needed, I either had to figure out how to build it myself, or I had it made in South Africa and just shipped it over, right? And that's how I got on with it. And eventually I came back in 2007. I moved back to South Africa, and I brought back my MR2. It's a car that I bought in Holland, put a turbocharger on it. And then when I moved to the UK after Holland, I couldn't drive it on the road anymore. So I thought I'll build it into a race car. And that's when the real drag racing started for me, you know. So I managed to do I think a 10.3 at Santa Pod with that car. And eventually I brought it back to South Africa and you know, continued to build it and improve on what we were doing and managed to do a 10.1 at I think 223 k's an hour with a 1600 twin cam. And yeah, and one day, you know, it's got a transverse, I think that's the right word, transverse axle setup. So it's like a front wheel drive, but the whole setup sits in the back of the car. Yeah. So you have to deal with side shafts and, you know, front wheel drive style gearbox. And eventually I kept repairing and building and making everything stronger. And then at some point I realized this is not going to work, right? We have to put the engine in front and put a big diff and a gearbox in between it. And I've got a photo somewhere where I bought some tires, you know, 32 by 14-inch tires, and I put it next to this MR2, and it just dwarfed the MR2. And then I realized this car is not going to take me forward, right? I can't put the engine in the front. I need to find something else. And I was looking around for like a rear-wheel drive platform. And at the time, I had a Lexus IS200.
Yes.
Actually, I brought that back from the UK as well. And I looked at this one day and I said, how can I make this thing work? You know, instead of cutting it up. And then I started talking around, and I got my hands on just a shell. It was in a front end smash, and that was perfect, right? So I could use the shell as the car, and then take a mold off my own car for the nose, and that way I could build up this car. So that's when I started building it up, and you know, we did some research on Google, looked at some pictures. What did drag cars look like? You know, what does full tube chassis drag cars look like? I took 100 photos and drew averages between all these photos and said, well, if there's 100 of these things out there that look similar, it must be the right design. And I eventually designed, and we built
aerodynamics and all that type of stuff. Yeah.
Not so much aerodynamics, but more the chassis design, right?
Yeah.
So because that's the really important part. And so we built this chassis, and Tom Buertes from TNT helped me to build the chassis. And that's how we got to the track. And our aim was at that stage, Louis Lima, you probably remember his name. He had the record for the quickest four-cylinder of 8.64 seconds for his four-cylinder. And that was our aim, right? I mean, that was my dream, is to try and compete for that record. And with this new car, we came out and we did that relatively easy, right? And then we went further and further and further, and eventually we were at 8 flats, 8 zeros, and you know, struggling with trying to get the traction down, and put on some bigger tires, and boom, there was a 7.87 run. What? And you know, this was far from the potential that the car had, right? And Craig Zank then, you know, he pestered me for a while, and eventually he got it right to buy the car for me. And that allowed me to take, you know, everything that I learned in building that car and everything up to that point, and put it all into a new project, which is, you know, what stands behind me now. Yeah. And that started off as a 4-cylinder setup. So I took the motor from the old car, put it into this new car after we built it, did some shakedown runs, and it was showing some good promise. And then, you know, unfortunately, I put the thing on the roof.
I saw the photos. There was quite a hectic accident that you had, eh?
Yeah, it was unfortunate, but you know, these things happen. It's part of racing, and you know, you have to wipe away the tears and move on. And during the rebuild process, Maurice Westhuizen, you probably know him as well, right?
Yes. I heard of him.
He runs the Budler car. Yep. So he's a 2J fanatic, right? So I know he likes the BMW 6-cylinder engine that they've got in the BM now, but really deep down, I think his heart is 2J. He won't agree with me, but I think it is. But anyway, he convinced me that you know, let's go the 2J route, because it's, you know, more reliable, it's easier to make power, blah blah blah. There's, you know, probably a lot of good reasons for it. And during the rebuild process, I put a 2J in. right? And then after having played with the drag clutches, you get this like a slipper clutch, and it's designed to slip a certain amount, but because of that, it wears. So there's a lot of maintenance behind it. While I had that in the 4-cylinder car, I decided that's not the route I want to go for the 6-cylinder. So I decided to put in an auto. And yeah, it robs a lot of power, but it sure makes racing a lot more fun, right? Because it's a lot less PT in between rounds to maintain it. Yeah. So it's been a fun journey, and now we're here now.
And now take us through. I mean, you went and did Haltech, the World Finals, didn't you?
Yeah. So I think our first trip,
what was that? 2018, wasn't it? That
2018,
you guys went?
Yeah, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So I went to the first World Cup Finals. I think in 2015 or 2013. Anyway, we've been there a couple of times, and then we decided at some point I looked at this track. I was standing next to the track actually, and watching the racing. I said, I need to come here with my car. I don't know how, I don't know when, but I will one day come here, right? And I was toying with the idea, checking out costs, and it's just astronomical, right? To go there by yourself is just it's quite pricey. And I think in December 2017, I got a call from Quinton Boylan, and he said he wants to go to the States. He wants to go and race in the States, and I'm like, hallelujah, we can do something here, right? So then we quickly got around. We spoke to Dupi and to Marius and Butti from Butler, and we all said this is a great idea. We'll go and rob the coffers and the kitchen cupboards and see what we can get, and we'll figure out how to get to World Cup.
Yeah.
And 2018 we went, right, and it was an absolute joy.
I mean, how did you guys do there compared to the guys with all the Americans? Just as a recap from everything.
I think, to say that we were competitive, I don't think that would be accurate, right? But, if you put it into context, we were there, we had a week and a half, not even a week and a half, right? Because it really rained. We planned to have nearly 2 weeks worth of testing before the event, but the weather was atrocious. Plus I think we all had our little ups and downs before the event. But considering the time that we've had at an A-grade track at sea level, I think everybody did fantastically well, really well. Give us 6 months in the US, and then I think we'll all be very, very competitive with that level of racing.
Because there's a lot of other factors that's involved. I mean, it's not just getting there, getting in the car and going. I mean, air pressure, everything is different. And then there's a thing from your side. I mean, the jet lag. You guys are getting used to everything on that side from the plane, and there's a lot of factors that play into it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I look at the jet lag is maybe something that your adrenaline takes over, right? Because it's flat out go for the 2 weeks. So that's maybe a minor, but the big thing is really the cars, right? I mean, you locally, what we try and achieve is traction, right? You're trying to figure out, how do I get the most traction? Now, when you go over to an A-grade track, you have to figure out, how do I make enough horsepower? Because the traction is no longer an issue, right? You now have to figure out, how do I make horsepower? And over here, we've never worried about horsepower. Yes, it's something that you work on, but it's not something that you truly worry about. Because you can't use it all, even if you can make it.
That is a fascinating statement that you just made. I never thought about it that way. That is absolutely fascinating. So you guys got there. Now you're there. I have to ask, did you have a moment where you're sitting in the car and you're on that track and you're like, I've done it. I'm here. After everything, standing next to a track a few years earlier, and now you're there and you're actually doing it. The dream is there, the realization.
I think it's a real look. Do you get get the chance to really realize what you've achieved, just by sitting, like you say, sitting on the start line, right? Do you realize that what you've achieved? I think that's sometimes a little bit difficult, but what really makes it special is when you look up at the stands, and I speak under correction, but I'm sure there was probably about 100 South Africans that went with us, right? So if you just look at the stands, and everybody was wearing this like team shirt, that was printed, and you can see the presence there and the support. That's the special part, right? I mean, that's like really what makes it.
I'm actually getting goosebumps, man. That's insane.
Exactly.
That's beautiful.
I mean, that's the part that makes it warm inside. Yeah, you're sitting there in a car and it's nice track, and those things are cool. Yeah. But it's racing is nothing without the people around it. If you're in a car racing down the track by yourself, it's not racing. You're just enjoying a toy of sorts. But having the support and all those people around you, that's what makes it special.
That's true. That's very true. So now, like you said, so you're sitting on it, you guys get there. So now traction is not a problem anymore. Horsepower, how did you guys get around the horsepower thing? Are you guys just trying to open everything up as much as possible? What were you guys playing around with while you were there?
Well, I mean, the basics of a turbocharger engine is, you just put more boost and you'll get more horsepower. Yeah. Right? But here's the learning curve is, number one, have you ever built an engine that can take that horsepower? We haven't really been able to test that, right? I mean, a lot of these things are uncharted water. What about the rest of the car? I think every one of us figured out that there's some weak spot within our, call it the supply chain of a racing car. There's a weak spot somewhere that we didn't know about, right? And that's how we came to learn about that. Is once you increase power at one end, something has to give somewhere else, right? And not always, but in most cases, something has to give, right? So, if it wasn't a mechanical thing, it might be that your fuel pump can't deliver enough fuel, for example, to make that power. It's not something you could have tested before. You bought the right part, or you thought it was the right part. You thought it would be capable of managing that sort of power, and then it didn't, right? I mean, I had the issue of the transmission. I mean, we were chasing a problem within the transmission, and we thought there's something wrong with this gearbox. It just keeps on slipping. And in the end, it turned out to be the converter, right? The converter was just it's not up to the power, because we were making so much power. And again, because there's so much traction, something has to give now in between. And that was the converter, and I think locally, that was our savings grace, is we were making some power, but the traction was helping the converter stay alive.
Yes.
So
that's insane, dude. That's absolutely insane. I mean, you watch the street outlaws and this type of shows, but you don't really. I think people don't understand what actually sits and goes behind it. The amount of figuring out, going into it, because your thought process is you get a car, you throw in a lot of motors, big tires, and you go down the line. I think people misjudge how much figuring out goes along the way. From, like I said, power, maintaining that power at the same time. It's one thing running something. Like limiting the amount of power that you've been running. Now you're running full boost and stuff the whole time, but you need to keep doing it. It's not just it's not just once that you need to do it. You need to do it a lot of times. Is everything going to hold up towards it? What's that impact going to have on the motor when how was everything? Oh, put it that way. How was it when you guys got back? I mean, did you and Dupin, did you guys sit back and have a chat about, okay, well, man, shit, this is not what needs to change?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we can all have our own little story, based on what we've learned there. I came back and I immediately figured out, I have to make a big change. Let me say a big change in the mindset of how I make this recipe work, right? So for me, the converter was the problem. But not just that. You know, I learned that 99 is not good enough. You know, it has to be 100. So whatever you do, make sure that it's 100%. You know, because 99 is just, you know, it's at some point it's going to let you down.
Yes.
And what was evident with this trip is, you know, we went there and we thought 99 was okay, and it wasn't. You know, and in hindsight, it was a hell of a lesson to learn. You know, compared to the amount of investment and stuff like that you had to go there for, right? I mean, it's everybody's effort. I mean, you know, I crashed my car, you know, 3 months before we showed the cars, you know. So it's a little bit hard for me to swallow that pill that everybody's putting so much effort to get this car right, and there's one thing that, you know, even before that, way before that, that wasn't done 100% right. And I'm talking about the converter, right? The purchase of the converter. I went with something which I thought was okay, right? And it wasn't. You know, for some reason it wasn't okay. And I'm not going to knock the guy that built the converter or anything like that, right? I'm just saying it's just, you know, I think you have to sometimes go to your means, but sometimes you have to go beyond your means because it's necessary. You know, and all that effort that everyone put in those 11 weeks before we loaded the container, you know, is partially in vain, you know, I feel, because of that one component. But
that
you know,
one thing.
If you live in a world of ifs and, you know, what ifs, then I suppose you wouldn't live. But you know, that's the one thing that was close to me, is that, you know, there was so much passion and support to get there, and then just that one thing let us down.
It's that South African saying, it's all right, wees. It's all right, wees.
That's exactly what
it's all right, wees. It's not always all right, you know. I remember, because I mean, obviously I've followed you on social media after the crash, and when you guys were building, I was feeling the anxiety for you guys getting that car ready, you know. Well, as you guys, the progress were going into it, I mean, knowing that you guys had this deadline to go. It was absolutely insane. I mean, you guys turned that car around so quickly, though. Fixing everything, getting it back. Do you think that hurt you a little bit as well? Or put it this way, when you got back, did you take the moment to relook at everything and go, okay, cool, let's go through it now? All the stress and everything is now gone. We've dealt with it. We went to the States. We're back. Okay, now recap and see where we're going now.
No. So here's the one thing that I can say, right? Everything that we did in that 11 weeks to fix the car, not one thing bit us. Not one.
What?
Not
That's
one.
insane.
There wasn't an electrical issue. There wasn't a mechanical issue. Not one thing bit us, right? Look, you know, you have to ask me, did we do it in the best, you know, way? Like, did we have enough time to make the bodywork absolutely perfect? No, we didn't. But it didn't hamper us at all, right?
Exactly.
You know, these sort of things. I mean, you know, you wanted to make a little bracket, so could you have a billet one made? No, you had to fabricate one, right? So those sort of things. But nothing let us down, and that was really the testament to the amount of effort that we put in there. You know, and I didn't know how we were going to do it. You know, I got out the car when all the dust was floating around me that day at Tolton. And excuse my language, but all I said was F.
You can say fuck on the show, no worries.
You know, Maryland, what now, right? And that's all I could say, is that, you know, this was supposed to be a shakedown run just to get ready, and you know, we're 11 weeks away, and what am I going to do? And I went home that night, and I tried to sleep, and I said, no, I don't know how, but I'm going to rebuild this car. And I think 8:00 the next morning, 8:30 the next morning, on a Sunday morning, my buddy Anthony and my dad, Fred, they turned up here, and we just got in and we stripped the car. We just said, we're going to try.
Test the damage. I mean, besides for body damage, what damage did you guys pick up there? Was the motor everything fine?
The motor, for the main part, look, it was full of dust and sand and all that sort of stuff, right? I mean, the I'm not sure if you can see the car, but basically the right front wheel was ripped off. the car, right? So it ripped out of the chassis. The whole strut was ripped off, and the wheel went underneath the car because it was still attached to the steering rack.
Yeah.
Now the steering rack is so strong that acted like a knife, and it cut everything in its path as the wheel went underneath the car. So it tore the chassis up, it tore the bottom of the engine up, it tore all the pipes, the intercooler. It basically destroyed half the car on the right-hand side. And eventually the wheel ended up underneath the car, dragging underneath sort of the prop shaft area of the car. So it really destroyed the whole front corner of the car.
Wow. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
look, it's only steel and fiberglass, right? So I mean, you cut it and you fix it and you
make a new one.
Yeah.
I going back to the US, how was the Americans? How did they work with you guys? Were they at least helpful? Supportive and stuff from their side, welcoming you guys into the everything on that side?
Very, very. Like I say, everybody had their own challenges. From Marius, bending axles and damaging diffs. Quinton had some front suspension issues and some gearbox issues, and I of course had the gearbox issues. Stupi had some engine issues, and you just stuck up your hand, right? You stuck up your hand and you said, "Hey guys, can someone help?" And it's amazing. Everybody just came out of almost out of the trees, right? And you don't know, from a bar of soap, and they're willing to offer you their workshop or their tools or their time to help you and fix these things.
That's beautiful, eh? That's
yeah, that's the thing, right? I mean, I think that's what made it special for me is, the racing was cool. I mean, I really enjoyed the racing and the event itself, but being there amongst those people and the friends that you made from that trip, the people that you got to meet. I mean, we met people that have got pro mods, and I want to liken it to the guys in Street Outlaws, right? You see these guys up there on TV, and you think, well, these guys are so untouchable, and then you get to meet them one day.
Yeah.
Right? And actually, they're just normal human beings, but they're cool people, and that's what we were able to do. You had these really top guys of World Cup finals who live in the area, and we got to meet with them, and they helped us out with parts and whatever, repairs, time,
everything,
whatever. Yeah, and it's normally people that you only see on the internet. You see on Facebook or at the event and stuff, but now we're there and they're helping us.
I had that. I mean, on the podcast, I interviewed obviously the Godliers, the guys from Big Red, that Big Red Camaro, the world's fastest Camaro, and then Ring Brothers, and then actually last night I interviewed a guy called Rob Ider. He's one of the top car builders in the US, like insane. And like you said, you idolize these people, and you've got this idea in your head of how they're going to be as a person, and then they come on and you start talking to them, and it's completely different. And you actually completely blow. He actually, with the show last night, it's coming out the next few days. I mean, he walked around his shop to show us what he's building and how he's building the machinery and all that type of stuff. It's fascinating. How we perceive how things are going to be. But I must say one thing with the machinery that the guys have in the US is just insane. If you look at the size of their shops and how they actually are kitted out, I think that's the thing that always blows me away. If I look at that compared to South Africa, from a car builder's perspective, like the one last night, there's this massive hammers, and then there's a CNC machine sitting in the back cutting out brand new bullet wheels, and it's just insane what actually sits there. And that's where that's the part where, from a South African perspective, you're like, okay, that's where we need to get to. We need to get to these shops where everything's there. You can in the morning wake up and go, oh, I need this thing, and by the afternoon it's either cut out a bullet or it's done everything, and because everything's just available right there to your fingertips. Where do you see drag racing going in South Africa? I mean, you think there's a lot more pro mods and stuff are gonna start coming in? Because when I said that my statement in the beginning with you guys are changing it, to me, maybe it could be a perception because everything was bigger when you were a kid. So I mean, I remember Tolton and stuff, and we had the Wild Bunch that used to race and this type of stuff, and racing was like insane. And then it kind of slowed down, and it wasn't as spectacular. I don't want to say spectacular because it feels like I'm insulting the guys that were racing at that point, and I'm not. But now all of a sudden, in the last few years, your car, Doopy's car, all this type of stuff, it's gaining to the same level as what the US is seeing. Put it that way, it's getting that same feel. Where do you think it's going? Where do you think do you think drag racing? Because drag racing is still one of the biggest, pulls the most spectators in South Africa. I think out of most racing at the moment.
Yeah, and I mean, drag racing is one of the easiest things to do, right? Because you can do it with your daily driver. So I think that's why it's quite popular. Interesting question because, unfortunately at this level, we at this level, I'm talking about these sort of cars, right? The cars you're talking about now, is we limited to really one track, to go competitively, and that's Tolton, and bless Tolton, they are who they are. But even at Tolton, you're still limited to what you can do with these cars, right?
Yeah.
Now, the days of Westbank, they came and went, and that was great for the sport because it gave us another A-class venue, and it then also brought in competition between those two venues, right? And then you really had to put in some effort into promoting and attracting people to your events, and then I think you also had the dynamics between the V8 guys and the compact guys, right? All the 6-cylinder and smaller. And you still have that. Now, what you see almost like a fading away of V8 type drag racing.
Yes.
And an increase in compact. Is that a good or bad thing? I don't know. I think we need to get back to racing, proper racing. So where the light goes green and somebody actually has to win. We're not running for times. And we can't really do heads-up racing. I think heads-up racing in this country is not a good form of racing because there's not enough cars that are that competitive to have pure heads-up racing. So I think we still have to go on the handicap racing, and as unpopular as that may be, because it's a little bit more technical than just going down the strip. That's what drag racing is all about. It's built around this handicap system that encourages you to have a good reaction time, to have a consistent car, not to throw everything on one run and then put your car on a trailer and take it home. You have to make it through the whole day because that's what racing is all about. But it'll never be that if we don't promote it in that way. Event organizers, if there's no sort of series organized like Tolton had it wasn't really Tolton's series, but the national series that was held at Tolton. If there's no sort of championship that is run like that, then you're going to continue to get these ad hoc casual events, and that's never fully going to develop the sport. You have to have a series of sorts, like they're having circuit racing and go-karts and drifting and everyone else, right?
But you guys are okay. I mean, because the problem is it's the same guys racing the same guys the whole time. Look, there's feuds and stuff that always goes on because that's racing. There's always one that's trying to beat the other one. But is there more? There is more new cars coming in. I mean, I've been seeing on Facebook there's a lot of cars that's in production at the moment, a lot of new drag cars and stuff that the guys are busy with. So you think that's going to help expand everything a little bit more? But sorry, like you're saying, it comes down to the venue at the same time, and also you're not traveling. That's not Cape Town sits. I mean, you've got the VO. You've got Ralph that's just brought in the Camaro and stuff from the US, but they're struggling on that side because they can't race at Killarney. That track is not safe for drag racing at all. It's that massive dip. There's not enough run off. The amount of guys that's almost come short there, and then over and above that, they've got that decibel reading issues and stuff that goes on there as well. So that's kind of killing it in the Western Cape because you guys can't come down. You know, we can't get the racing. You can't get it, so you can't really start building where you've got the Cape up against Joburg and the Durban guys and stuff because there's not a lot of tracks where the guys can go. I mean, I think I know Ralph's coming onto the show in the next few weeks. When he had that Can-Am that he was racing, he just kept it at Tolton. He says there's no point in actually moving it anywhere. So you can see how that slows the sport down the whole time, you know. That progression isn't there. No, I think that's the problem. I heard, wasn't there a story that someone is building another track? There's always stories about new tracks coming up.
There is. So there's a track coming up in Clarkstorp.
Yes,
at the moment it looks like. Yeah, at the moment it looks like. Remember, right? So here's the thing. So up to call it, mid 9 seconds. You can pretty much race anywhere across the country, right? Every track is fine. It's got enough runoff area, and everything's safe there. Go beyond that, and this is where you run into a problem because now you can't do side-by-side passes because the track's too narrow, or the organizers, they don't want to take a risk on that, or you have runoff area problems. Or you have surface issues, right? Like you mentioned with Cape Town. I mean, that's a real big thing. I mean, you've got these two big slicks on the back of the car with a solid axle, and they want a flat surface. So as soon as the surface is not flat, then the car is moving, and once it's moved, you're not going to get it straight, right? It's going to go in.
I know cars that launched it because of that. That dip just launches. As too much air gets in underneath the car, and it's not something you want happening at 200 k's an hour. Yeah,
exactly right, and we're doing 200 k's an hour, in those short distances. So, the cars that we're building now, unfortunately, we're kind of our worst enemy because we're building these cars and we don't really have a place to go to. We have Tolton, and now we've got potentially the track in Clarkstorp. So it'll be a quarter-mile track, but for the slower cars, and then they're going to make an 8-mile. For the big cars, right?
Okay.
And I think eventually they have plans to expand and make a full quarter-mile for the big cars, as they get more property and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But that's now an alternative, right? So now we have, let's say, 2 places to go for the big cars.
Yeah.
The big cars are playing at Midvaal at the moment. I'm sure you've seen we were there on Sunday.
Yeah.
For a better term, it's a no prep event, right? So although it's a circuit, you can consider it like an airfield, right?
Yeah.
So it's very raw tar. There is a bit of glue sprayed, on the first 100 meters, but it's not even comparable to Tolton, right? And that's already quite a long way off from like the US standard, for example. But it's an avenue, right? And you just have to now change your recipe and say, well, okay, I can go and race there and have some competition. I just have to do it in a different way. I can't set records. I'm going to now race my competitor, and I'm going to race the track. So now you have to take on different strategies. Put bigger tires, put traction control, change your weight balance. Turn the boost down, manage your boost. These sort of things. So now you're doing this whole racing thing in a very different way because of the track. Yeah. And it's not a knock against the track or anything, right? I mean, this is. Hey, we chose to build the cars. We didn't.
Yes.
It's no one forced us to. So we just have to work around that.
But my question, I mean, look, I've had drifting guys and everybody on the show. Is motorsport in South Africa? I don't understand why it's not getting the publicity that it needs. More than anything else. Why it's not bigger. I mean, South Africans love cars. We love racing, all forms of racing. Yet our sports channels and everything don't give us or don't allow us to actually promote it. And it has got such a knock-on effect because because we can't get the exposure, so it comes down to how many people you can get to the event. But now you're struggling with sponsors and stuff at the same time because the numbers aren't there. I mean, that's the big. I think that's the big thing for the US is the fact that the numbers are there. The events are enormous. There's TV coverage of the drags and stuff, proper TV coverage and stuff, and sponsors are getting in there to get their names out and show them what their products and stuff can do. And I think that's what we're fighting with the whole time. The coverage it's like there's like few sections of the market because you guys are doing your part. You are building the cars, okay? You are setting the records. You guys are going all out. It's like the infrastructure is failing you, if they want to put it that way. Everything else that surrounds it is failing because you guys are struggling to get the proper big sponsors and stuff behind you. You're struggling to, there's track conditions and stuff that you guys need to fight with. So the infrastructure on the track stuff's not there. The exposure is not there. Like I said, it's just. I feel like the country's failing the drag races more than anything else. Is it the work and effort that you guys put into it?
Yeah, I have a little different view, right? I mean, so last year I went to the US and I traveled around, a couple of states and just had a look. I got the opportunity to go to a couple of local drag strips. And when you talk about their sponsors and there's TV coverage and all this sort of stuff, that's cool, right? That's really for the small little portion at the top end of the sport. But if you look at the majority of drag racing, it's people like you and me, like we're doing it here, right? You work out of your garage, you're taking your grocery money, spending it on your drag car, you're going to the track, you're trying not to break stuff, and you're trying to have fun. But there's small tracks, and I tell you, the one track that I went to is Mooresville Dragway. Tiny little track. It's an 8 mile, very narrow. The surface is beautiful. But I mean, if you look at the infrastructure, there's like a rickety fence next to the track that keeps the public away from the track. There's these old, really old, and almost, use the word fraught grandstands, wooden grandstands, right? And it amazes me that you could let people sit on there, but that's what they have, right? It's like grassroots racing. I'll think of the guy's name. It's gone out of my head, but he's a pro stock guy. And he's got his workshop just down the road, and he uses that track for his testing, right? Yeah. So they keep the surface in pristine condition. So the facility as a whole is it's here or there. It's okay, right? I mean, it does the basics. But the way that they attract the people there is to have good events. I mean, think about it, right? I mean, McDonald's doesn't open up and make a burger and hope that people are going to buy it. No, they're going to figure out what the people want, and then they're going to make that burger accordingly, right? And that's I suppose the art of marketing. You have to be able to market the sport. Is it difficult? It's very difficult with our country and the dynamics of the political situations. Companies don't really have incentives to invest or to advertise too much, unless they really get that return. And unless it's an A-grade sport that's on TV, you struggle to get that return, So that part makes it really difficult. I'm not sure if it's that much easier that side. I think people work hell of a hard. And I think it's really up to the promoters to really shine and make the event special, because again, if you've got something that the public wants to buy, they will buy it. Exactly. Whether it's racing, whether it's a burger, anything, they will buy it.
So it reminds me of that movie, What If You Build It, They Will Come. It's the same thing. Put on good events, and the spectatorship will start coming. Like I said, look, I mean, you're right. I know, I've spoken to enough guys to understand, you've got the grassroots stuff in the US at the same time. You've got the small tracks that are struggling and how they're closing down. And I was talking to someone the other day, and they're like, the difference is they're complaining because they have 70 tracks and 20 are closing down, and we got 5.
and sort of 1.5 of those are okay.
Yeah, exactly. So I agree. It's gonna look. It comes to to the promoters. It comes back to the guys who's putting the shows together and trying to get the events and stuff going. Bottom line, we need to get more tracks open, because at the same time, there's no access for guys to test, to drive more than anything else. I mean, you've got, if you're sitting into a small town, I mean, how far do you have to go before you can get to a track where you can really start racing? That's the problem. So that progression and that building is not there then the whole time, you know. And maybe that's the problem.
Sure. One thing I must give credit to Midvale Raceway, right? So their approach of recent has been to allow exactly that. They allow track time. So if you want to go there and test your car, you phone them up, you pay your fee, whatever, you know, and whether it's on a Monday or a Saturday or a Sunday, you know, if they've got space, they'll let you come and test it. And obviously, you know, they put the right safety and everything in place, right? But that facility is open to you. So now, in terms of Midvale, you can never have that excuse, unless it's a financial one, to say, well, I can't get track time.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not an exorbitant financial cost, right? It's manageable. So the more of that you start getting, you know, the more track time we can get, the more we can prepare our cars, so that we don't go on a race day and blow the things up because we're trying to experiment with something, right?
Exactly.
We actually go on a race day to a well-promoted event, because remember, there's two sides of this. The promoter has to put on a good event, but they have to bring the people and advertise and market it. But the cars also need to turn up and make it the whole day in competitive racing. And unfortunately, we don't have much of that either, right? There's a lot of breakdowns and mishaps that we have. So, you know, again, this monster needs to feed itself, you know, and everybody kind of needs to be in the same boat, heading in the same direction to make it work.
Exactly. It's not one thing. It's a combination of things that need to come together to start looking and redoing it. What's your goal? What moving on? What do you guys have lined up? What's the next step for you guys?
I think locally everyone's chasing the 6-second bracket, right? I mean, everyone wants to be. Gavin was already there first, let's say, for the door slammers. But then, you know, you in every record you start at door slammer, then it's engine size, and then it's the make of your car, and then it's the color of your car, and eventually somewhere you'll have your own record. But at the moment, so eventually, I'm already the quickest pink Lexus in the world, so I've got that record. Yeah, that's my claim. But so Gavin already has the quickest door slammer the first door slammer to the sixes, right? He ran a 699, I think. And now everybody's chasing that. So not just to better it, but you know, all the 6-cylinders want to get there first. You know, so the likes of Marius and I are in that competition. You've got the 4-cylinders who also want to do their part. So locally, that's sort of the target, right? There's no championship. I can't say I want to chase the national championship because there is nothing. So unfortunately, that's what it is. The real target for me is to go back to the US and finish what I started. Yeah. Right. Because I didn't get a chance to do a full pass, not one full pass in 2 weeks of being on the track, not one full pass. Right. So it's a little bit heartbreaking for me, but we'll get back and we'll do it. Right. We learned now from our mistakes. We've made those changes, and hopefully we'll get that opportunity to go back there and do that, you know, and compete at that world stage, and not just once. You know, now we've seen how beneficial that 2 weeks that we had, or that little bit of 2 weeks that we had, how far we went in that. Imagine if you were there for 6 months. Imagine if you could leave the car there and do 4 or 5 events. Exactly. You know, now imagine how competitive can you be, right, through that period. And you know, bless the South Africans. You know, we come from the bush.
But that's a sad part, because that means that our best cars, in order to compete properly, have to leave the country, if I want to put it that way, you know. that's heartbreaking, because you guys go there to go do the compete and to get to that level where you are, and then South Africa doesn't have proper or big drags for a time period. And that is I mean, it's sad that's the that's the option that's available. Put it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that you feel that, right? You feel that with the local supporters, because they miss you. I mean, our cars were gone for the best part of a year and a bit, and people missed us because we weren't at the track.
Yeah, exactly.
And they felt it.
Yeah, because you're becoming heroes. You're becoming the role models. You are. That's what race. That's what part of the sport is. I mean, you've got the young guy that looks at guys like you going, no, that's where he wants to be. That's the level that they want to get to. So that's why you guys have the support and stuff going into it. And it's right that it creates a vacuum. The cars leaving the country do create a large vacuum in the industry. It is because the way we were saying earlier, now a drag event, they set up a drag event, and there's the top guys aren't there. So okay, do I really want to go? Don't I want to go? That's what we need. More cars. Guys, build more cars. Okay. Let's get out.
No, and it doesn't matter what industry, right? If it's a car show, whether you're building classic cars or whether you're drag racing, you need the guy that's built his car, his show car in the background, in his backyard, and he's got mags and some tinted windows. So he's got very basic modifications, but you need those cars because there's followers for that. But you also need the chip-proof cars at the show, right?
Yeah,
that's just how it works. And same like drag racing, you need the 6-7 second cars, even though there's only a handful of them, and maybe the competition's not that that strong or the running because there's so few of them, but you need them because that's what the people come to see. If you talk about Tolton events, what do people talk about? Hey, we want to go and see the jet car.
Yeah,
the jet car does 2 runs. Yeah, 2 runs a day. That's what it does. It's spectacular, but it's not racing.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
That's what attracts them there, right? They have to run that jet car to get the people to come.
Exactly. And then I mean, people don't understand how much it costs to run that thing. I mean, I was there the one day, and Mick and them were showing me the top fueler, and they were explaining to me what goes into running the top fueler with a horsepower, motor build. And, I mean, that's phenomenal. Though. I mean, you can buy a car for the amount it takes to give that thing 2 runs, and you can buy a good car as well. People don't understand the cost that goes into running something like that. It's insane. But a question I've got, so the world's becoming smaller. All right. I think COVID has shown us a lot more. There's a lot more communication running between, like now you guys and after you guys have been there's more communication going. Are you guys not getting approached by some of the big brands and stuff now when it comes to manufacturing and stuff, where the guys are wanting you guys to run their parts like they have in the US, the sponsors and stuff? I mean, look, we talk to guys like Woolwood and them, and we find out who from racing and that type of stuff. We had Automotive on the other day, the CEO Jack. They do the fueling systems for NASCAR, drag cars, and all this type of stuff. I mean, isn't that's the next step, is start getting these big brands behind you, where the guys are going, well, you're the biggest, you're the fastest in your category, you're the fastest in South Africa. This is where, because what you put on your car, everybody, all the guys lower down the line, that's what they want to run on their cars. That's just how our industry works. Have you guys started getting any communication where you start working with some of the bigger guys?
I think it's slow. Again, it's the companies have to be able to realize that return.
Yeah.
So that's a mathematical equation. You figure out what that return is and figure out if it's worthwhile. I mean, I had that. I had Royal Purple approach me. So the guys locally who have the Royal Purple distributorship. Yeah, Johan and them. Yeah, you know them. So they actually approached me and said, they've got this wonderful product, and can we do something? And I went there, and we went through the whole sales pitch, and then I did my own testing, and I checked out this product and did my research, and it was actually a great product. So yeah, we ended up partnering with each other, right? And so there's been benefits for both here. I got a benefit out of the product, not just just the sponsorship or something, because it solved the problem that I had. But in the end, I suppose there has to be a return, and I'm a realist, right? I spend my grocery money to go racing. I spend way too much of it, but it's a choice that you do, right? So I imagine much like a sponsor, the sponsor has to make the choice and say, am I willing to do this? And sometimes I can get a return for it, and other times it's just bragging rights. Hey, my name's on that car, right? And that's fine. That's good enough for some, right? Because it supports the sport. It supports the
like a gas monkey. Think of Richard. Richard sticks gas monkey on drag cars and monster trucks and anything because he wants his brand on them. Got nothing to do with them, but it's about getting his brand and building that brand at the same time.
Exactly.
But I love the fact that a sponsor like Royal Purple, for instance, where a company comes in and it makes a difference. It actually makes a difference on the car. I mean, like when I was talking to Mike from Woolwood, when they step in with, because a proper sponsor doesn't just come and give you a check. They come with the knowledge that sits behind it, So when Mike can explain it, so they get to a team, and Woolwood then sits down. They change the whole dynamic of the car because that car all of a sudden gets such a big difference because of just braking. Because braking is a very big part of a very, very, very big part of racing. And that gives that team that little edge, and that's great sales thing from their side is the fact that, well, look, he was third, we came in, now he's first. I think that's a concept that a lot of South African companies aren't looking at. They don't want to take that chance, to get there and throw the brand in and see the research. Look, I've got a big issue at the moment. And it's nothing against any of the sponsor stuff that's out there. I struggle with South African companies that's taken rights to parts in the US that's not doing anything with them, if I can put it that way. There's a lot of great brands in South Africa, or a lot of great brands that's available in South Africa that where I know the brands would want to get in behind and push, but the local guy that's sitting with it is just sitting, waiting for someone to buy it more than anything. They're not educating the market. They're not pushing the brand. This is a whole different pitching session on my side.
I hear you. I mean, there's definitely you have to, if you're carrying a brand, you have to be able to promote it, right? And it costs money to promote these things, but in the back end, eventually you'll get that return.
Exactly. Look at how I'm looking at Haltech on the card. Right? Haltech comes and sits. If they start changing their stuff, their product, supplying that product, putting that knowledge and stuff in, the amount of info they learn at the same time. That's the other part that we keep picking up, is companies forget by working with someone like you, the amount of knowledge they can pick up, and those short bursts that you go down that track. You picking up data that will take them years in any other way that goes into it. There's a lot more development coming back from a South African perspective, but it's also knowledge that they can put back to their clients at the same time. You have the problem. Well, when we ran with this car, this is the difference that it made. Maybe that's where the problem is coming through to you. It's supposed to be a win-win, put it that way. It's supposed to work. And anyway, like I said, that was my bitching session for the day. Tune in next time for another one.
We can carry on for a long time if you get stuck in that path. But I mean, I think that For me, I always want to look at the shiny side of the coin.
Yeah.
Don't forget the other side, but look at the shiny side and keep reminding everybody that there is a shiny side. And unfortunately, going back to the discussion with the tracks, we have what we have, but it doesn't stop me from spending big money on something that you got to try and make work, right? And not just me. I mean, I'm sitting here. You can't really see it.
I saw the Facebook page. Yeah, you had that yellow monster. What is that? And whose is that? And what's happening there? So
this is Duppy's new car. So that's actually why I went. That's actually why I went to the States last year, right? On my road trip. So I went to go and pick up this car for Duppy. It's an ex-Ricky Smith Pro Nitrous car.
Yeah.
So Ricky Smith is a big name in drag racing, right? If you're in drag racing. Duppy's got the 86. Originally, it had the Datsun body, the GX body that was imported from the States. The whole car was imported, and then he changed the body to put an 86 body on, and it's got the twin cam motor, and he did phenomenally well in the US, running a 722, I think was his time, which is for that size engine, it's almost like a miracle, right? And you can go a bit quicker as well, but eventually the engine's finished, right? You can only squeeze the twin cam that hard, and it's done amazingly well for what it is. So he's got to the point where, he also wants to progress. So what does he do? Does he try and take that engine out and put something else in that car? And he eventually decided that, going to a bigger and better car was the right answer. And that's why he ended up with this car. So he brought it in. It's a proper chassis. It's built by Jerry Bickle. Beautiful car. He's put his own flavor on it, painted the car and doing his thing with it. And now it'll get a bigger engine, a 2J. And, then he can play in the 6-cylinder class for a while,
Yeah. Now, my question, sorry, I know we've been over an hour, but you were saying that, the 6-cylinder parts, it's 4-cylinder and 6-cylinder. There's not a lot of guys playing in the 8-cylinder space at the moment. Why do you think is that? Why don't we have a lot of supercharged or twin turbo V8 dragsters in the country? Is it the cost? What do you think is a factor behind
that? I think probably
look at the road. That's what we like.
No, but have a look at what's on the road. How many V8s do you see on the road? And I'm not talking about the M3 or these new generation V8s, right? I'm talking about V8s.
Yeah.
You don't see them. So could that be a reason? Because there's no authentic V8s out there anymore. So there's no following behind it. That following eventually it's died, not died. It's maybe the wrong word, but it stayed behind with our parents. That generation. Because they've now stopped racing and whatever. So that
technology
era has sort of been left behind.
Yeah. Just move your camera a little bit, just so you're in the middle again. I'm just scared it's going to cut you.
Oh, me? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just.
Okay. That's fine. So, you're right. Look, it's technology. I understand it's the 2J. Look, that 2JZ is a phenomenal motor. And it's so easy to pull so much power out of it. I don't know. Like I said, it's that's just always a question that sits behind it. Like I said, there is a bunch of guys bringing in new cars from the US, running with V8s and stuff again. But it always got me by. It's a big South African thing. The 4-cylinders and 6-cylinders, it's a big South African pull more than anything else. And maybe that's like you said, that's correct. It's because that's what we grew up with. That's there. That's
it's what you have around you. What's common?
Yeah.
You can go to any scrapyard and get not any scrapyard, but you can go down the road and get a 2J motor. Try and look for a 350 or 400, Chevy.
Big. Yeah.
You have to shop, right? You really have to put some effort into.
Well, there's only a few guys that bring them. There's literally a handful of guys that bring them in, all over the place, and I think and there's not that amount of guys that understand building horsepower on them I think, as well, because it's not a norm. Okay. I mean, there's not a lot of guys who can build a 900. Actually, there isn't a lot of guys who can build a 900 horsepower V8 or 1,000 horsepower or 2,000 horsepower V8 in the country. It's only a handful of guys that can do it, that understand what goes into that. Yeah.
Well, you say that. I don't think there's anyone really that can build a 2,000 horsepower six-cylinder. So think about that, right? Because we haven't got there yet.
Yeah.
I can tell you. I mean, even Marius with the Butler BMW, I think they've made the most power, and I think in the States they managed to get just over 2,000 horses with it. So they've only just cracked that ceiling, right? To say that okay, we can build a 2,000 horsepower engine, genuine 2,000. Not sticker races. I call them sticker races, right? It's you get whatever's in the box and it tells you how much power it should make. No, genuine power.
Yeah. So on the back wheels. Yeah.
Yeah, because you don't get an opportunity to try it and see where it does or doesn't work. But it's you got to keep on pushing the envelope. But and then the four-cylinder stuff is very popular because it's so widely available.
Exactly, the parts are everywhere. Spare cars, spare motors, everything. It's cheaper. It's much cheaper to run.
I wouldn't give away technology, right? I wouldn't put it as easy as technology. I know you mentioned that before, because V8s are still stupid, right? The quick V8s, it's still a stupid pushrod design, right? But they go like hell. I mean, you saw that black Bucky, the S10, the Shed S10.
Yeah.
So that's with Tiaan van der Merwe at the moment, and he's putting in a 632 cube nitrous engine. So it's 632 cubes. It's a big engine, but and therefore it makes power, but it's still a stupid engine. I say that respectfully. It's still a dumb engine, but it can still make power. And also to your point that the V8's not dead yet. I mean, Ralph brought one in. Tiaan's got one now, so at least that's almost doubling the V8s in the country.
Exactly, literally doubling.
at least in this class,
Yeah, but look, when I was talking to the guys from Automotive, I mean, the States are they're pushing top fuelers at 10,000 horsepower at the moment.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that is just crazy, eh? Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, as a drag car, can you imagine sitting behind the wheel of something like that?
Well, what's the quickest you've been?
I've been. No. Funny enough, I've never drag raced. I've never done drag racing, top end runs and that type of stuff. I've been over 300. And then, I mean, growing up with car guys, I've been in a lot of stupidly fast things, where it's just off the line, more off the line and stuff. Other than that, like I said, I've never. It's actually it's on my bucket list. I still need to get on a drag strip.
So you've done 300, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Probably it took you.
Like a week.
in most things, it takes about a half a minute or thereabouts. It's a long time, right? Now picture. I mean, we're doing that in 7 seconds. So when you compare a guy like you that's been 300, sorry, my battery is going flat. But when you compare a guy that's been 300 and we're doing it in 7 seconds, can you just imagine how those guys with the 10,000 horsepower top fuel dragsters are compared to us? What does that feel like? It's still miles and miles away.
Wow. What is it from 0 to 100 in a third of a second? It's just crazy. It's absolutely. I mean, what are they running? They're running like 3 point something seconds on a quarter mile at the moment.
On
or is that an 8 mile? Yeah,
no, 1,000 foot. Yeah, so it's a bit short. It's about 300 odd meters, but it's still quick, right?
That is just
very, very quick.
Mind-boggling, absolutely. And the process of how they got there, more than anything else, how the ability to build just stupid amount of horsepower. But yeah, listen, I need to get going. I need to get ready for my next one. I've actually got 2 more interviews today.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got a Vermont sales. We're talking about some new products. And then tonight, the Peterson Motor Museum in Los Angeles
Oh, nice.
has a thing on at the moment. It's an online museum show that's going through the whole week. So I've got the head of the museum on. And then I got a cool email last night. I've got the COO of Edelbrock is coming on the show in second week of September. So we got some really cool people lined up for this thing. My goal with working with the US companies is I want to try and get them here more. Put it that way. Invest more into our drag racing, our racing, and all that aspects. I'm already talking to a bunch of brands about doing a conference next year, getting a bunch of big companies that can come and talk to guys about racing, building parts, blah blah blah, everything available, just so we can try and boost the racing aspect a little bit more. That's the one nice thing about living in Africa and being 15 rand to the dollar. It's way cheaper. It's cheap to come here and to try and push and help push the guys on this side. Because to me, it's about education more than anything.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can think about your process of building and learning going on, imagine if you were in the States. Yeah. I mean, most of that information's on tap. You're going to find Billy Bob down the road, and he's built 3 of them already, type of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Listen, so thank you so much.
We've had to put in.
Yeah, no, sorry, continue.
No, sorry. We as South Africans, being on this little island, we've had to put in a lot more effort than maybe some of the, some people, if you were based in the States, for example, because you either can't, you can't get your hands on the product, so you've got to make it yourself, or you've got to bring it in and figure out which one to bring,
But I mean,
like that.
Just thinking about it. I mean, looking at Doopy's car. I mean, you can sit as a drag racer and go, okay, I need a new car. I've got very large checkbook, and you can phone one of the top builders and they can deliver a car, or they've got one that's sitting there. Then you can phone a guy and go, listen, I want a 5,000 or 8,000 horsepower motor. When can I have it? You can just, and everything just comes to you.
It's just money. It's just money.
Exactly. You can quickly jump in a car, drive to a guy, and go make it done. I mean, that was I think that's what fascinated people when Street Outlaws came out, was the fact that here these guys were building these cars, but they're all hanging around. They're making a stupid amount of horsepower and everything. But it's all this, dude. It's like imagine if all the top drag races were in Boxburg. Everyone. Well, actually, it is. Most of them are.
It sounds like it, at least.
Yeah. Listen, I mean,
nice.
with my magazine, I sell more magazines in Boxburg area than I think I do in the Western Cape.
Yeah, we're here with you, buddy.
Yeah. Hey, remember, like I said, I grew up in Sunrit Park. I went to Oosterlig. Well, if we're talking 90s, I partied at Masquerade that was up the road.
Jeez, I remember that, yeah.
Yes, got into crap and silver. And if you really felt like a Joel in a fight, you went to Silverados.
I stayed away from that one.
Listen, dude, it was great talking to you, man. Absolutely great.
You too, man. Thanks
you
for the opportunity.
No, dude, it was awesome. I've learned a lot from this. That's the problem, and that's why I love these conversations. You have always this idea of what's going on in the market, but until you talk to guys like you that's actually sitting inside there, that's fighting the good fight, you never know. Thank you so much, dude. It was great. Listen, look after yourself, be safe, and I'll see you out there at the track. I'll check when there's the next event when I'm in Joburg. We can come and drink. All right, man.
We'll include you on the party.
Excellent. Thanks, dude.
Cool. Thanks, Joe. Cheers, eh? Bye.